Imagine being in an argument where um, somehow by the end of it, you find yourself totally exhausted, confused, and actually apologizing for something you didn't even do.
Oh, yeah, the classic spin cycle.
Right. You started out just trying to, I don't know, address a simple issue, and suddenly you've been run through this psychological maze. You walk away thinking, like, what just happened?
It's a horrible feeling.
It really is. Well, you have likely just experienced the defensive machinery of a narcissist. So welcome to today's deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today, we are moving way beyond the internet buzzwords. We're jumping into this totally fascinating, highly detailed presentation from April 2026. It basically completely strips down the foundational psychology of narcissism.
Yeah, it really gets under the hood.
Exactly. Our mission today is to cut through all that pop culture noise and establish a true basic understanding of this behavior. We're going to look at the actual mechanics, how it hides in plain sight, and basically how you can spot the machinery before you get caught in the gears.
Which is so crucial because, let's be honest, the word is everywhere now.
Oh, everywhere. You've probably slapped the label narcissist on someone after a terrible date, or maybe, a boss who just refused to listen.
Right, everyone has a story.
But actually understanding the psychological engine behind that word,
Yeah.
that requires a totally different level of insight.
It does. It requires a total paradigm shift in how we view behavior because, frankly, the internet has severely watered down the concept.
Yeah, it's just a catch-all insult now.
Exactly. We've taken this highly specific, complex psychological operating system and turned it into, a label for anyone who happens to act selfishly or just annoys us.
Just anyone we don't like.
Right. But if we actually want to protect ourselves from the real harm this behavior causes, we have to stop looking at the surface and start looking at the wiring underneath.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can spot it in the wild, we really have to unlearn what pop culture has taught us. So based on the source material, how do we properly define what we are actually looking at?
Well, the source presentation establishes this beautifully right out of the gate. It pulls us away from all that clinical jargon and defines narcissism as a rigid, enduring pattern.
A pattern.
Yes, that word pattern is the absolute linchpin. It's a continuous operating system where a person is overwhelmingly focused on themselves, their image, their perceived superiority, and this is key, their insatiable need for external admiration.
So it's not just a mood.
No, not at all. It is the very lens through which they process reality.
Wow. And just as importantly, the presentation clarifies what it isn't, which is where I think a lot of people, myself included, kind of get tripped up.
Oh, absolutely.
Like having one rude moment does not make someone a narcissist. Being fiercely proud of an accomplishment is not narcissism.
Nope.
Even being sarcastic, highly difficult, or just having a remarkably selfish Tuesday, none of that meets the criteria.
Because human behavior fluctuates, right?
Yeah.
We all have moments of intense self-involvement. When you are deeply stressed, you probably aren't being the most empathetic person in the room.
Oh, definitely not.
But for the vast majority of people, that selfishness is a temporary state. It's usually followed by guilt or some kind of self-reflection.
Like, oh man, I was really snappy yesterday. I'm sorry.
Exactly. But in a narcissistic framework, there is no self-reflection. There is no guilt. The self-involvement is permanent.
So it's really about the presence of a continuous pattern versus like a temporary glitch in the system.
Precisely.
But I want to make sure we draw a hard line between this and actual healthy self-esteem. So is healthy self-respect like putting on your own oxygen mask first on an airplane so you can help others? Whereas narcissism is hoarding every single oxygen mask on the plane just in case while just watching everyone else pass out.
What's fascinating here is that your analogy highlights the exact psychological deficit we're dealing with.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The difference isn't the presence of confidence. It is the total absence of reciprocity. Healthy self-love says, I have inherent value and so do you. You put on your mask to preserve yourself, which then enables you to assist the passenger next to you. The narcissistic operating system doesn't even recognize that the other passengers have a right to breathe.
That is just, wow. That's dark.
It is. They hoard the masks because, in their reality, they are the only person on the plane who actually matters. Other people are simply props in their movie, basically existing solely to serve their needs.
That is a staggering way to look at it. It's almost like an issue of object permanence, but for human value. Like they only value you as long as you are actively serving their image.
That's a great way to put it.
Which brings me to how this actually plays out in the real world. We've established the theory, but what does this machinery look like when it's switched on in, say, a normal environment?
Well, the source material grounds this in scenarios we see every single day. Think about how this manifests in a standard office.
Okay, yeah.
Imagine a team grinds for weeks to finish a massive, highly successful project. When the dust settles, one individual steps up and effectively presents the success as their solo triumph. They absorb all the praise.
We all know that guy.
Right. Now, inevitably, a manager might single out a different coworker for their specific contribution. For a normal person, this is a moment of shared celebration.
Yeah, high fives all around.
But for the narcissistic individual, they become deeply, viscerally offended. They become bitter. They might even try to subtly undermine the coworker who just received praise.
Wait, hold on. Let me push back on that workplace example for a second.
Sure.
Isn't stealing credit and getting mad about someone else's success just like the hallmark of a fiercely competitive, ruthless corporate ladder climber? I mean, some environments practically reward that cutthroat behavior.
That's true, they do.
So where is the line between an aggressive careerist and actual narcissistic thinking?
That is the perfect question to ask because the outward action looks identical, but the internal mechanism is completely different.
Okay, how so?
A ruthless ladder climber is operating with full awareness of reality. They know you did the work. They know your contribution was valuable. They are simply choosing to step on your neck to get to the top.
Wow. Okay, so it's just a calculated strategy for them.
Exactly. It's aggressive, but it's grounded in reality. The narcissistic pattern, though, involves a genuine distortion of reality.
So they aren't just lying to the boss to get ahead.
No, and that is the terrifying part. In their internal reality, they actually believe they are the sole reason for the project's success.
Wait, seriously?
Yes. They lack the cognitive empathy required to perceive someone else's effort. So when that coworker gets praised, the narcissistic individual isn't just annoyed that they lost a PR battle. They feel genuinely robbed.
That is wild.
They believe that giving credit to anyone else is a literal theft of glory that rightfully belongs only to them.
That fundamentally changes how you view that interaction.
Yeah.
It's not just malice. It's a completely altered version of reality.
Exactly. And the source presentation outlines how this empathy deficit destroys personal relationships, too.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Yeah, they describe a scenario where a partner constantly demands an endless stream of emotional support and compliments. They require this massive emotional safety net.
Right.
But the absolute second their partner is in pain or has a bad day and needs support, the narcissistic individual completely dismisses it. They might say, you're always too emotional, or why are you ruining my day with this?
Just totally cold. It is the ultimate one-way street.
It really is. And the reason they dismiss their partner's pain isn't just because they are lazy. It's because someone else's pain shifts the spotlight.
Of course.
If you are crying, the attention is on you, which means it isn't on them. Your pain is processed by their brain as an inconvenience and a threat to their emotional supply.
Which opens up the biggest mystery for me. We've talked about what they do, stealing credit, invalidating partners, demanding attention. But I want to know what powers this engine.
The why behind it all.
Exactly. Because if they truly believe they are superior to everyone else, if they genuinely think they are gods among mortals, why do they care so desperately about what we think of them? Why do they need the constant compliments?
Because the grandiosity is a shell. It is just a facade built over a foundation of profound, devastating insecurity.
Really?
Yes. The source material explains a concept that completely flips our understanding of arrogance. Narcissistic individuals depend on external admiration the exact same way that a healthy person depends on basic nervous system regulation.
That is intense.
Their ego is essentially a balloon with a massive permanent leak. They are not full of themselves. They are constantly deflating.
So the arrogance isn't a sign of strength. It's like the panic pumping of a person trying to keep the balloon inflated.
Exactly. We call that external validation narcissistic supply. For you and me, a compliment is a nice bonus. It makes us smile, but we don't collapse without it.
Right, we're fine either way.
But for a narcissistic personality, that supply is structural. It is the emotional scaffolding holding up their entire psychological framework.
And if you don't get it?
If they don't get it, the false image they've built of themselves begins to crack, exposing the deep shame and emptiness underneath.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because that completely explains why they react to criticism like it's a matter of life and death.
Oh, absolutely.
I've always been baffled by how someone who projects so much power and confidence can just absolutely melt down over the tiniest piece of constructive feedback.
You're hitting on a concept known as narcissistic injury. When you offer them constructive feedback, even if you deliver it with the utmost kindness and diplomacy, their brain does not process it as helpful data,
What does it process it as?
as a physical threat to their survival. You are basically poking a needle into that leaky balloon. And when the false self is threatened, their defense mechanisms deploy with a level of ferocity that is genuinely shocking to a normal person.
And the primary defense mechanism is deflection, right? Like, trying to resolve a conflict with them is like trying to fix a leaky faucet. But by the end of the conversation, they've somehow convinced you that you are the reason water was invented.
That is a brilliant way to phrase it. It captures the disorientation perfectly. But let's look at the mechanics of why they do that.
Yep, let's...
The source gives a classic example. A partner bravely speaks up and says, "Hey, that comment you made really hurt my feelings."
A totally normal thing to say.
Right. Now, a healthy brain processes that, feels a twinge of guilt, and says, "I'm so sorry, let's talk about it." The narcissistic brain cannot process the shame of being wrong without the ego collapsing.
So what do they do?
So it instantly rewrites reality to export the bad feeling onto you.
They project it.
Yes. They immediately fire back with, "You are always so sensitive, you ruin every evening we have together."
Wow.
Notice what just happened mechanically there. They did not argue to find the truth of the situation. They argued to regulate their own anxiety.
By making you the problem.
Exactly. By making you the problem, they are instantly absolved of all shame. The spotlight is back on you, but this time it's an interrogation spotlight.
It's incredible. You bring them an issue, and within 5 seconds, you are put on trial for your reaction to the issue.
It's a dizzying tactic.
And the source presentation highlights how this exact same deflection happens in the workplace. Like, an employee tries to give standard upward feedback to a supervisor about a workflow issue.
Right.
And the supervisor's immediate response is, you should be grateful you even have a job here given your recent performance.
It is a stunning pivot. They take a conversation about their own conduct and instantly weaponize it into a threat about the employee's job security.
It's all about fear and control. It immediately shuts down any possibility of accountability. And honestly, it makes me think, there's a term I've heard in psychology, egosyntonic. Does that apply here?
Oh, definitely.
Because it feels like they don't even realize they're doing anything wrong.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that term is the master key to understanding this behavior. Egosyntonic means that a person's behavior is completely in sync with their ideal self-image.
Okay.
Think about someone with intense anxiety that is egodystonic. They hate feeling anxious, they know something is wrong, and they want it to stop.
Right, they want help.
Exactly. Narcissism is egosyntonic. The grandiosity, the deflection, the lack of empathy, it all feels perfectly natural and correct to them. They don't think their software is infected with a virus. They think everyone else is just running an inferior operating system.
Which completely explains why they rarely seek therapy or change. I mean, why would you go to a doctor if you genuinely believe everyone else in the world is the one who is sick?
That is the exact mechanism at play, and it leads us to a very difficult contradiction that the source material tackles head on.
What's that?
If these individuals are so fragile, so deflective, and so fundamentally incapable of accountability, why do we keep falling for it?
Oh, that's the big question.
Why do we hire them to lead companies? Why do we marry them? Why do we vote for them?
The answer is the mask of charm. The presentation hits this point so hard, and it's terrifying. Narcissistic people aren't walking around wearing a villain's cape.
Not at all.
They can be incredibly polished, they can be the funniest person in the room, socially magnetic, and incredibly generous in public. They know exactly how to work a crowd.
They are masters at it.
And that is exactly why they are so hard to spot initially. You do not see the rage and the deflection on day one. You see charisma.
Charm is an evolutionary camouflage for them. It is how they secure the narcissistic supply they need to survive.
Wow.
The source material lays out a set of golden rules that every listener should write down. Ready? Charm is not proof of character.
Right.
Confidence is not proof of empathy. And someone being wildly impressive in a public setting does not mean they are safe in a private setting.
But if charm can be used as a mask or a weapon, that creates a really paranoid way to live, doesn't it? Like, how can you ever trust a genuinely charismatic, charming person you just met if you know this psychological machinery exists?
This raises an important question about how we evaluate people, because the answer isn't to become paranoid and assume everyone who is funny is a narcissist.
Right, that would be exhausting.
The answer is to stop taking initial charm as a final verdict. You cannot judge someone's character on their best day or when they are actively trying to win you over. The source emphasizes that you have to observe patterns over time.
Over time, okay.
And specifically, you have to look at what happens when the emotional weather changes.
You guess the machinery. The source actually provides diagnostic questions to help you spot the true pattern. You don't ask yourself, are they fun at dinner? You ask, how do they treat someone who fundamentally disagrees with them?
Exactly. Watch what happens when you introduce the word no.
Yeah.
A healthy person might be disappointed, but they respect the boundary. A narcissistic person processes no as a narcissistic injury. The mask will slip and you will see the anger or the subtle punishment.
Another great question the presentation suggests. How do they act when they are simply not getting the attention they want? Like, do they sulk? Do they sabotage the event?
That's a huge red flag.
And perhaps the most revealing one. Do they show genuine empathy when someone else is hurting?
That is the ultimate litmus test. It is very easy to be charming when the conversation is entirely about your own achievements. It is incredibly difficult for a narcissistic personality to fake genuine, sustained empathy when the spotlight is on someone else's suffering.
You just can't do it.
No, they will inevitably try to bring the conversation back to themselves, or they will dismiss the other person's pain entirely.
And the final defining question, do they take responsibility or do they always inevitably export the blame? Like if you look back over a year of knowing someone and you realize they have never once offered a genuine apology that didn't include the word but, you have your data.
Yep, the evidence is right there.
It's about gathering behavioral evidence over time. You are looking for the consistent pattern because the pattern will always reveal the reality behind the camouflage.
The charm is what gets them in the door, but the inability to take accountability is what ultimately gives away the game. You just have to be educated enough to look for it rather than being blinded by the glare of their initial charisma.
So what does this all mean? If we zoom out and synthesize everything we've uncovered from this April 2026 presentation, establishing a true basic understanding of narcissism means realizing we're dealing with a totally different psychological operating system.
Completely different.
It is not vanity. It is not someone taking too many selfies or, loving the mirror. It is a deeply ingrained, rigid pattern of entitlement, empathy deficits, and absolute control designed to protect a profoundly fragile ego.
And it is vital to remember the core mission of this deep dive. The point is not to turn you into an amateur psychiatrist diagnosing your friends and family from a distance.
Right. Please don't do that.
The clinical label doesn't actually matter in your day-to-day life. What matters is recognizing the repeated harm this machinery causes. The pure exhaustion of dealing with someone who demands constant validation but offers zero reciprocity.
Right. It is about trusting your own reality.
Mm-hmm.
If you find yourself constantly apologizing for things you didn't do or feeling like you were walking on eggshells to avoid triggering a meltdown over a minor critique, you aren't crazy.
You're really not.
You are just caught in their defensive spin cycle. Once you understand the mechanics, the leaky balloon, the projection, the need for supply, the confusion just evaporates. You stop trying to logically fix the leaky faucet when you realize the person holding the wrench is the one intentionally breaking the pipes to keep you busy.
Knowledge is the ultimate boundary. When you understand how their nervous system is wired to export anxiety onto you, you stop absorbing it. You can observe the behavior without internalizing the blame.
I love that. Observe without internalizing. And before we wrap up today, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to chew on. Something that really struck me about the core psychology we just discussed.
Yeah, let's hear it.
We've established that the narcissistic engine runs entirely on external supply. Their entire psychological defense system requires an audience to react to them, to praise them, to fear them, or even just to fight with them.
They need that reaction.
They need you to pump the air into the balloon. So here's the question. If their entire reality depends on your reaction, what happens to their behavior when you simply stop reacting entirely? What happens to the machinery when you remove the one emotional fuel source they need to survive?
That is a brilliant and incredibly powerful place to leave it.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep your eyes open, observe the patterns, and remember to trust your own reality. We will see you next time.